This video is a practical step-by-step visual guide to the structures, protocols and procedures needed to respectfully help understand and navigate the Aboriginal Heritage Process. The video is an easy-to-follow template, induction and training tool. It covers the whole process, from identifying who to talk to, negotiating and managing agreements, site surveys, heritage monitoring, protection, and work health and safety requirements. The video has been produced with the help of Aboriginal people and industry. It's important to understand that some of the processes in this video will differ for some Aboriginal groups. But in all cases, the key to successful outcomes is involving Aboriginal groups in meaningful and honest consultation very early in any development proposal, and maintaining respect and understanding throughout the whole process.
When you guys are right to go, so everyone's signed off.
This will help to avoid any delays to potential projects. In this video, when developer is mentioned, it refers to anyone who alters the land, including construction, extraction, and exploration. In Australia, each state and territory has different government acts and laws, as well as Commonwealth legislation in Australia that protect Aboriginal heritage, sites, objects and remains. It is important to understand that whether land is freehold or not, Aboriginal sites and objects have blanket protection under state, territory and Commonwealth laws. In this video, when territory is mentioned, it also refers to Torres Strait Islander territory. Step 1. Understanding Aboriginal heritage and culture.
Years ago. So we know that oral history stories can be this old.
It's important to obtain knowledge, understanding and respect for Aboriginal heritage, culture, beliefs and traditions.
In the past, our ancestors lived on these countries, lived this country knowing the storyline and the song and the dance that's been handed down. You'll see the formations of the land, trees, the creeks. It all has connection and it's all spiritually important to the Aboriginal person and our traditions and our customs.
Dreaming stories have been handed down from generation to generation for thousands of years.
And the spirit always remains in the country, through the land formations or through the trees.
Bifacial core.
Aboriginal heritage is Australia's ancient heritage and is the heart, soul and spirit of this land. The heritage sites and ancient burial grounds of Australia's first people are precious living, breathing museums.
It's very interesting to walk along these kind of things, creek beds, because this is where you might find a lot of skeletal remains.
Aboriginal people are connected to the land, air, waters, seas, plants and animals in a variety of ways. Dreaming stories, Aboriginal laws, burial grounds, ancient campsites, stone tools and artefacts, shell middens, modified glass, ancient art sites, stone and ochre quarries, scarred trees, fish traps, caves and rock shelters, hills, waterholes, rivers, islands, and ancient objects and places with stories attached to them. All of these things spiritually and physically connect Aboriginal people to their country, past, present and future. Step 2. Identify the Aboriginal people of country.
But I'm pretty sure in the last survey we went as far as this gate, this fence.
There are several hundred Aboriginal nations and language groups in Australia, each with specific territories or countries. Before any land disturbance occurs or meaningful consultation begins, the Aboriginal people of country must be identified. To identify the Aboriginal people of country, the relevant native title group, representative body or Aboriginal Regional Heritage Authority. Contact Native Title Services, Aboriginal Land Councils in each state and territory, Aboriginal Affairs Government Departments, or the National Native Title Tribunal. A list of other organisations that can be contacted is included with the support materials. The Native Title Group, representative body, or Aboriginal Regional Heritage Authority may prefer developers to consult directly with their organisation or through their lawyer, heritage manager or heritage group.
Where the community knows it's being looked after.
It is not unusual for the exact boundaries of neighbouring native title claims to be in disagreement between groups. This can lead to discussion of who speaks for country to be a sensitive issue. In this case, developers must consult with all groups that are affected. Step 3. Consultation commences. Once meaningful consultation is commenced, at all times, before, during and after the process, everyone must be patient, behave with integrity and in good faith, be respectful and communicate in an honest and professional manner to reduce stress for all parties concerned and to achieve successful outcomes for all. The main concerns for Aboriginal groups is to identify and protect heritage sites, places and objects. During the initial consultation, it is crucial that Aboriginal groups are provided with comprehensive and crystal clear descriptions of the proposed work. Good maps supplied showing the area and location of the proposed work. Impact on the area involved is comprehensively explained. An Aboriginal Heritage Site Survey strategy, budget and agreement can begin to be formulated at this meeting. Step 4. Aboriginal Heritage Agreement and Management Plan. Before an Aboriginal Heritage Site survey or monitoring of ground disturbance takes place, an Aboriginal Heritage Agreement and Management Plan is negotiated and put in place. Everyone needs certainty, and a comprehensive Aboriginal Heritage Agreement and Management Plan at a very early stage of the project can provide that.
All of that from there across.
Step 5. Aboriginal Heritage Site Survey.
Very hard work, but fruitful. We're working on our ancestors' country here. We're relocating stuff, which is good for us for the future. But it's just a privilege to be out here doing this kind of work.
An Aboriginal Heritage Site Survey is basically an inspection of the development area before any land disturbance occurs to identify and record heritage sites, places and objects. A planning meeting takes place to discuss the logistics of the site survey. Some areas may take only a few hours to survey, and others may take several days or weeks. Logistics planning includes scheduled dates of the survey, number and gender of anthropologists and archaeologists, accommodation and meals, transport, four-wheel drive vehicle hire if needed, fuel supplies, meeting place, toilet facilities, working hours, days allocated, number and gender of people required, any other support people that may be required, work health and safety issues, personal protective equipment, site inductions, timing and provision of reports including the level of information to be provided, and payment schedule.
5:30 and then that's that.
It may be necessary for Aboriginal elders and other Aboriginal people of country with cultural and site knowledge to do a reconnaissance of the area before the survey team arrives.
Well, before we start the survey, what we'll usually do is come up and we'll do a little bit of a recon and drive around, look at the roads, kind of look at what the terrain's going to be like so we can tell people what they're in for and think about the best way to approach it.
In most cases, Aboriginal site surveys will include the help of specialists, anthropologists and archaeologists.
We come out with everyone and we typically spread people about 20 metres apart, and so we'll have an archaeologist on each end, and we've each got one of these devices which will show us where we are within the survey area. So that puts us with 6 people. That gives us about a 200-metre transect. Okay.
Let's go.
The role of the archaeologist includes researching the area for known registered heritage sites, cultural mapping, recording sites and objects, and producing a report. In most cases, a specialist anthropologist gathers anthropological information. Some Aboriginal heritage groups have preferred specialists they trust, and it is recommended that the developer commissions the services of these specialists or negotiates mutually acceptable alternatives.
If anyone finds an artifact or something, they'll flag it and they'll call on the radio or get the person next to them to call out to the archaeologist on the end, and we'll come over and see if there's a larger site, if it's an isolated artifact, or record what they've found. So when we find artifacts, we use these not only to navigate where we're going, but we also use them to record the artifacts and then download the data at the end of the day. Key characteristics we can look for, one of which is a platform and a bulb of percussion. So when the flake is hit off the core, if someone hits it here, it then creates a platform and a bulb on the inside, which we call the ventral surface.
It feels good to be home, walking our country. We feel good about it. Makes us strong, even though the mountains are trying to knock us down. The ancestors putting power in our legs to keep us going. All right, but I'm going to go jump in the back of the ute now and lay down, all right?
It's worth noting that even the farmland featured here, that's been ploughed for over 100 years, still contained hundreds of artefacts.
Paddocks have been ploughed, and the country's been ripped up and ploughed and farmed. 150 years on, we're still finding stone tools that the old people knew are still showing up after 150 years of cropping this country.
Heritage zones may be completely flagged off and signed for additional protection. Some groups may not want visual identification. This process would be included in the Aboriginal Heritage Agreement and Management Plan. If there is low visibility in a specific area because of long grasses or another reason, several options may be considered in consultation with the Aboriginal Heritage Group.
The visibility for us to find anything in something like this, we'll call this low visibility because of the heavy growth of the crop. We can't see what's on the ground. We will walk the side access tracks between the crops and the fence lines, but once the crop's been taken off, then we'll have to come back and do a more extensive walk over the paddock.
If the development is ongoing, the developer will notify the Aboriginal Heritage Group each time a site survey is required. On completion of an Aboriginal site survey, separate reports may be provided. The Aboriginal group verifies the accuracy of the report. Information from the report may be included in the Aboriginal Heritage Agreement and Management Plan. Step 6. Monitoring ground disturbance.
I think on this lower edge would be good if you're along here, and then we can move forward.
Aboriginal heritage monitoring of ground disturbance can proceed if required. The preferred option for Aboriginal heritage groups may be to monitor all ground disturbance. Some groups may decide to only monitor certain areas, and other groups may only require a site survey. Monitoring ground disturbance is generally only required to shallow depths, but in some cases monitoring may be needed for deeper depths. Developers may want the Aboriginal groups with a boundary dispute to work together to minimise logistical and cost difficulties. Sensitive consultation and respectful negotiation is required here. The discovery of artefacts process must be included in the Aboriginal Heritage Agreement and Management Plan.
This has been part of a bigger rock, and it's been hit there, and so it's come away from the bigger rock and it's left that bulb there.
Right.
So it's one of the real identifying characters of a stone tool.
If artefacts are discovered, some groups may want to collect the items and move them to a flagged-off safe heritage zone, identified during the site survey process for protection. Other groups may want to leave the artefacts where they are.
Oh, it's quite heavy.
In all cases, respectful consultation will need to occur. and all heritage laws and acts for states, territories and the Commonwealth will need to be adhered to. Archaeologists can also help with the management plan to protect the artefacts. The discovery of skeletal remains process must be included in the Aboriginal Heritage Agreement and Management Plan. If skeletal remains are unearthed during any ground disturbance, all work in the vicinity must stop.
Stop, Gary. There's remains there, or bones. Okay.
When the mobile plant operator communicates back and stops excavating, the Aboriginal monitors can move in to have a closer look at the remains. If Aboriginal skeletal remains are discovered, there may be more burials in the vicinity. The remains may be hundreds or thousands of years old. There may also be artefacts within the burial site area. Aboriginal monitors discuss the discovery with the site supervisor.
And if it's not a crime scene, well then they'll hand the excluded remains back to us to deal with.
The site supervisor calls the police and any state or territory authority to report the remains.
We've come across what was believed to be human remains.
The police and other authorities, if required, examine the remains.
How you going, mate? Gavin, Ross and Police.
Yeah, Gavin.
How you going?
Right, yep. Just come across a few human remains, so just want to confirm that, or what we believe is human remains.
Yep. Depending on the condition of the remains, it may take several days or weeks to determine if the remains are Aboriginal.
Yeah, guys, they definitely look human to me.
Once determined the remains are Aboriginal, the authorities involved hand over the site to the Aboriginal Heritage Group of the area.
Had a look, they've determined they are Aboriginal remains. As far as safe hole are finished, it's nothing to do with us and it's all yours. So thank you for your help, thank you for your time.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. All right, guys.
In very remote and isolated areas, an expert archaeological report identifying the remains as Aboriginal may satisfy the authorities.
It's all right with you. What we'll do as per our agreement is we'll actually make this wider out. We'll go out 20 metres, we'll bunt it off, heritage signs in.
So what we'll do now, Wayne, is that
the project owner, site supervisor and senior representative of the Aboriginal Heritage Group discuss the process and reburial of the remains in consultation with the state and territory authority within the laws and acts governing Aboriginal heritage protection. Open and professional communications, respectful, fair and honest, between developer and Aboriginal people of country is the key to successful outcomes. All groups should not promise anything they can't deliver. Aboriginal groups will need insurance, public liability, personal injury and motor vehicle third-party insurance. Other insurance may also be required. Aboriginal heritage groups expect the developer to protect and restrict access to heritage zones. Aboriginal people of country expect unrestricted access to heritage zones, as long as they follow all site rules and processes.
Yeah, well that's it, that's right. Sometimes you can get them to fit back together.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It is ideal for Aboriginal people to receive accredited training for the work they are doing. Have good knowledge and understanding of the Aboriginal Heritage Act and legislation in their state and territory. There are numerous hazards involved in site surveys and monitoring ground disturbance.
She's starting to warm up a bit, making conditions a bit harder, especially when you're walking over rocks and all that, the heat generated from those rocks. Yeah, just got to make sure you got your fluid and do it steady. There's no rush.
Adopting an effective risk management approach like the SAFE process can help you identify, assess and control hazards while doing site surveys and monitoring. The SAFE process involves 4 simple steps: see it, assess it, fix it, evaluate it. See it. Identify the hazards. All hazards and incidents must be reported so safety controls can be put in place.
Yep, no worries.
Hazards associated with surveys and monitoring include working near mobile equipment, walking over long distances, over undulating and hilly environments, native and exotic animals, weather conditions and heat stress, working and camping out in remote and isolated areas, working some distance away from each other, driving long distances on dusty dirt roads and tracks. Assess it, calculate the risks. The risks need to be assessed and controls put in place.
Safe distance.
When assessing the risks, ask yourself, what is the likelihood and consequence if something goes wrong? What can be done to control the hazard and stop an incident from occurring?
And then we do the same on the other side.
Fix it. Control the hazards. Controls can be put in place that will minimise or eliminate risks to health and safety. Often, a combination of controls is the most effective.
Around the core yard, there are a number of hazards.
All people will be inducted on location before commencing work.
We've got a bit of a map there.
At most work sites, a zero drug and alcohol policy is normal practice.
That's it.
And testing may occur before being allowed to start work. If you test positive to drugs or alcohol, you won't be allowed on site.
But you all got the right equipment on, so you've got good reflective vests on, you've got your hats and your glasses on, and it's important just to keep an eye on the ground you're walking on so there's no slips and falls.
Travel management plans for each day would include checking maps, organising meeting points, food runs, water, where to camp, first aid, emergency response, evacuation plans, and notifying people.
And we'll communicate with each other with the radios themselves.
Before working near mobile equipment, discuss the hand signals and UHF radio communication process with the operator. If items are unearthed, put your hand up.
Stop, Gary, there's remains there or bones.
And use your radio to ask the operator to stop excavating. Make sure you get a response from the operator before moving in to take a closer look. Wear personal protective equipment when working near mobile equipment. Hard hat, safety glasses, high-vis shirt, long sleeves, long pants, and safety boots, or as advised by the site supervisor.
I think we're getting pretty close.
We would like both our males and our females, when they're coming out and doing this kind of heritage survey work, to make sure that they got the protective clothing on. We need to keep our mob safe.
When working close to mobile equipment, if possible, barricade the excavated area with flagging to keep heritage monitors a safe distance away. If no barricade is in place, work at a safe distance away from the equipment. If doing a site survey in remote areas in undulating and hilly environments, and there's no mobile equipment hazards, wear good hiking boots. When working in remote areas some distance apart from each other, it's important to carry UHF radios or agreed communication process. Wear bright high-vis shirts so everyone can see you. And carry water. During a site survey, due to cultural reasons, if there are no mobile equipment hazards in the area, some Aboriginal people may want to wear very little when walking around a remote location on country. This may not be accepted or safe in some areas. On warm summer days, to reduce heat stress, wear a wide-brimmed hat, drink plenty of water, and take regular rest breaks.
Yeah. That's why, our people put it on the...
When surveying in remote areas, it's important that a four-wheel drive vehicle is never too far away from the survey team, in case anything happens. And all vehicles must have working UHF radios. It is recommended that four-wheel drive diesel vehicles be used if travelling to remote areas, to reduce the risk of fires igniting from exhaust pipes when driving over dry grasses. People require a licence to drive four-wheel drives and must be competent driving long distances in remote areas, on rough, dusty tracks and in poor weather conditions. Four-wheel drive training and a ticket is recommended and may be required in some areas. It's important that people who are selected to carry out site surveys and monitoring are fit to do so. Everyone must behave in a professional and respectful manner.
Yeah, that's right, Ruff. Go ahead, yep.
Keep an eye out for each other, and if someone is struggling, help them out.
We can't just wear ourselves out just to please everybody. Right, we've got to do what we've got to do, as in looking after ourselves as well. So we're in no rush, no hurry, and we've got to take care of our own health and well-being. Okay.
Evaluate it. Check the controls work. The effectiveness of hazard controls need to be evaluated on a regular basis. Follow the safe process to effectively control hazards. See it, assess it, fix it, evaluate it.
Slightly smaller transect.
Remember, safety is everyone's responsibility. It's a team effort.
If you see anything.
Looking into the future, government laws may change the way Aboriginal heritage and native title is applied in Australia. Native title is the recognition by Australian law that Australia's first people have rights and interests to country through their connection to land and waters, laws and customs. Native title groups, representative bodies, Aboriginal regional heritage authorities and Aboriginal people of country are recognised by law and must be consulted. An Indigenous Land Use Agreement is a voluntary agreement about the use and management of land and waters that allows groups to negotiate flexible agreements to suit their circumstances. Remember the step-by-step process. Step 1. Understanding Aboriginal heritage and culture. Step 2. Identify the Aboriginal people of country. Step 3. Consultation commences. Step 4. Aboriginal Heritage Agreement and Management Plan. Step 5. Aboriginal Heritage Site Survey. Step 6. Monitoring ground disturbance. And follow all work health and safety procedures. Everyone must have realistic expectations. Understand that it takes time to do things. Developers have deadlines, cost constraints and timelines to meet. And Aboriginal people need time.
It's a nice object.
We're all here for the one purpose, to look out and protect our heritage.
Meaningful consultation, honesty, understanding, patience and respect will provide long-term successful outcomes for everyone.
No worries, Blake. No worries. Thanks, mate.